I am Lannois Carroll-Woolery. I am serving as president of the Caribbean Canadian Association of Waterloo Region. Acronym is CCAWR. We have been present in this community since 1975. So we just recently celebrated our 45th anniversary. And we've always been here for the Caribbean community and advocating for the Caribbean community and for the wider BIPOC community as well. And we do that through providing scholarships to Black students. We do it by hosting social events for the Caribbean community. We do it by advocating for the interests of the members of the community with elected officials, and certainly making it easier for new immigrants to the region from the Caribbean community to integrate and to become settled into the region. So one of the events that we host every year is a Black History Month event. And last year we did something a little bit different. One way of thinking about the Black community in Canada is some people like to segment it. So we talk about persons who are immigrants from the Caribbean as distinct from those persons who are immigrants from countries in Africa, as distinct from those persons who don't have a strong connection to either the Caribbean or Africa because their families go back over 100 years in Canada, whether they're in Nova Scotia or in Southwestern Ontario. And we refer to them as Afro-Canadians. Anyway, those three groups you can think of as comprising the Black community. Last year, we decided that rather than the Caribbean Association owning Black History Month or owning the launch of Black History Month, we'd partner with other Black groups in the region. And we were very happy to get the support of the region of Waterloo Ken Sealing Museum last year, and we hosted a launch there last year. This year, for the second Black History Month launch, we are going online. Obviously, we can't meet in person. And what we have is a two-day event this Saturday, January 30th, and this Sunday, January 31st, 11 p.m. to 5 p.m. both days. The theme of the event is celebrate, educate, advocate. And normally, in previous years, we would have focused on the celebration. That's typically what Black organizations have done in Black History Month. Artistic performances and speeches are where we tend to focus. But because of the events of last year, the Black community here in the region of Waterloo, across Canada, and to be honest, across the world, has really been very negatively impacted by the pandemic, by the recession, and of course by anti-Black racism. And we saw that throughout the year. We saw the wider community. Well, I would say that the Black community has always been aware of systemic racism and the barriers to progress and success. But in 2020, I think the wider society really became more aware of the challenges of BIPOC individuals. And I was so excited and so inspired to see the Solidarity March in Kitchener. I think that was on June 3rd, where so many members of our community came out in support of Black individuals and said no to anti-Black racism, to speak about the supports that the community needs. And so this year, for the Black History Month launch, we thought that we had to go beyond just a celebration. We had to go beyond spoken word, dance, music. We had to do something deeper, something more meaningful, something more impactful to the Black community. And so instead of a one-day event, we've made it a two-day event. And on day one, we will have a lot of greetings from elected officials and leaders of the Black and BIPOC community. We'll have guests, we'll have recorded speeches from Bardish Chagger, MPs, MPPs, the mayors, and so on. We'll have performances by Indigenous performers, musical performances, spoken word performances. So the theme of day one is more around celebration, celebrating Black life, celebrating Black activities, celebrating Black performers. On day two, we're going to get a little bit more serious, a little bit more in depth. And we're going to talk about some of the issues that the Black community has faced and continues to face. And we're going to bring together some local knowledgeable persons, some experts on topics of interest to the Black community. Topics such as health concerns, COVID-19, the impacts of COVID-19, any anxieties around taking the vaccines when they become available. We're going to have experts on education. So a lot of Black families are really struggling with the online format that we've been forced to move to because of the pandemic, because not all families have 2 or 3 iPads. Not all families have 2 or 3 laptops. Not all families have a dedicated space in their home, a home office where the children can work uninterrupted. And this is something that, of course, any disadvantaged community would face, not just Black community, but it's just one more thing that the Black community has had to deal with, because if the families have been more negatively impacted because of the recession, for example, and that is putting a strain on the family, and then it only adds to the strain if they're having difficulties in meeting the work, for example, that the primary or secondary school teachers might be giving them to meet. So on day 2, we're going to focus on trying to help Black families with mental health suggestions, with suggestions around maintaining their physical health, how to be successful in the school environment that's now online, and other topics, other similar topics of interest to the Black community.
That's absolutely amazing, and I'm happy to hear that this event is still being held, even with this large pandemic. It's something that the community still really needs, and it shows that nothing can really stop us. We can still gather in different ways to help combat COVID-19, and yet to still share your message, which is the most important part. Now, Black History Month happens every year in February. This really isn't the only time people should be talking about this and recognizing the contributions. Now is more important than ever, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement. You said with the Solidarity March last June in Kitchener. It's making a difference across the community and increasing conversation about the BIPOC community in our region. How can someone share your message and show their support for BIPOC and the Black Lives Matter community?
Thank you for asking. There are a number of ways that the wider community can show their support for Black individuals in particular, and for the wider BIPOC community. I would say the first thing that I would suggest is to become educated about issues that impact the Black community. Understand that the data shows that we have lower success rates in the high schools, in the secondary schools, which means a lesser chance of moving on to college and university. The data also shows that our average incomes and our median incomes are lower than that of the wider community. And so the first step is really just to educate yourself and to understand that the issues the Black community faces here are not that much different from those that are highlighted, let's say, in the States. One of the things that personally troubles me is when people say, oh, it's in the States, it's south of the border, that's where the issues are. And they're not willing to look at the information here in the region of Waterloo. So the information is publicly available. If you look at, for example, the 2016 census, that's one way to educate yourself. The second way I would say is although we are working very hard to make things better for ourselves as a community, we could use the community's help in terms of removing some of the barriers that we face as individuals. So I would say the second way the community can help us is in speaking up. When they see things that are detrimental to a Black individual or a Black community, to be an ally. So the famous phrase I've heard is, instead of not being racist, be anti-racist, meaning actively speak up about what you see and about what you hear and about what you read, and come out on the side of those who are fighting for equity and justice. Those would be the two things. The third way, of course, is to lend your support to Black organizations, to Black events, to Black organizations, or to organizations that work in that space. So the KW Multicultural Center, for example, that would be another way to do it. But there's so many ways, that the assistance is needed, that there really isn't this limited number of 1, 2, or 3 ways. Work needs to happen in workplaces. It needs to happen inside communities. It needs to happen inside schools. It needs to happen inside governments. And wherever you find yourself as an individual, whether you are in a government organization, whether you're in a private corporation, whether you're in a school, whether you're in a place of worship, whether you're in a community or a neighborhood, you can work to make things more equal and more equitable where you sit, and be actively anti-racist.
Where can someone go to find more information and connect with your organization more on social media, websites, etc.?
Yes, so we have a website, ccawr.ca, that's ccawr.ca, and you can go to our website to find information about the events, including the one coming up this weekend, can find about our mission, our vision, our board of directors, what we have planned. We also are present on Facebook, of course, Facebook, CCAWR, facebook.com/CCAWR. You can find us there. I also want to encourage persons to think about other ACB organizations in the region as well. So ACB meaning African, Caribbean, or Black organization. There's the Congress of Black Women. There are ACB organizations at the universities and the colleges and in many of the high schools. There is Bring on the Sunshine, that's going to have an amazing festival over the February long weekend. So these organizations, many of them are listed on our website. So if you want to find an organization that's operating in your area, in your neighborhood, you can send us an email at info@ccawr.ca or directly to me, president@ccawr.ca, and I can connect you with a number of the ACB organizations, both within the region of Waterloo and also in Guelph, where we're also connected with a number of associations there.